Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go over the Beatles' Please Please Me, but first I want to set the scene, a bit of backstory if you will. So our story begins in 1957. Elvis is on top of the world. It just seems like a really cool time to be alive. And the story where I'm going to start it begins with this man, Buddy Holly, and the Crickets, which is important. If you haven't heard this album, well, I mean, this is a compilation of his stuff, but you should definitely check out Buddy Holly. Now, Buddy Holly, along with Elvis and people like Chuck Berry and the Ronettes and a few others, were really influential in the Beatles sound. I mean, the Beatles covered a lot of Buddy Holly's songs, and I'm starting with Buddy Holly because, obviously, sadly, I can't remember the name of the other people in the aircraft, and I apologise. But the day the music died, Buddy Holly sadly passed away, really young, in a terrible plane accident. And a band from Liverpool, a really small band from Liverpool, called the Quarrymen, decided to change their name to the Beatles because Buddy Holly was in the band The Crickets. And it was a sort of a tribute to Buddy Holly. And I just think it's really cool that, the biggest band in the world, it's called that as a tribute to someone like Buddy Holly, who sadly not a lot of people know. And I'm sure that a lot of Beatle fans don't know who Buddy Holly is. I didn't know who Buddy Holly is until a few months ago when I did my research, so maybe I'm a hypocrite, but so from there, the Beatles are then in the Cabin Club and in Germany. I forget where in Germany. I've done my research. And they meet, I believe George Martin went to the Cabin Club to see them because they were kicking up a stir. They were getting quite popular with how good they were, with Pete Best on drums instead of Ringo. But I believe it was, I don't know whether it was John who decided, or whether it was the collective group, but they decided Pete Best wasn't the best for drums. So they hired Ringo, who was in another band at the time, which I forget the name of, but they hired Ringo, and then even in the studio, so when they get to the studio, George Martin wanted them to play their stuff, and he wasn't really impressed, but he thought he'd give them a try. He had a song planned out for them that they were going to do, because a lot of the time back then in the early 60s and the 50s it was common that the artist didn't write the song, as in Elvis only wrote one song, and George Martin had this #1 hit that he wanted the Beatles to sing, but the Beatles said they didn't really like it, and they had their own song, which was Love Me Do. Love, love me do. And so instead they did Love Me Do, which I believe it was a huge hit and hit #1. And let's bring this all up because I believe Please Please Me was a single as well, but this leads up to their first album, which was recorded in one 13-hour session, a whole day. And I can't imagine that. And it cost about £100 back in the day to record. I don't know what the exchange rate is for now, but that seems crazy. This is the 2009 stereo remaster pressing, which, it's just a basic digital master. But I do have, which I'm going to show off more because it's even cooler, I have an original 1963 mono pressing of the album, which I won't take out of the case because it's seen better days, being so young. But old, and it needs needs to be protected. It's very old. But this is obviously very important for the band and rock and roll in general. If you've never listened to this album, but you have listened to stuff like Sgt. Pepper's, then you do need to go back. And I know the early Beatles might not be for everyone, but it is amazing. I think it's really good. So the song starts with the first ever Lennon-McCartney song, I Saw Her Standing There. And I love how the entire Beatles discography, if you go from albums, starts with a 1, 2, 3, 4. I just think that's really cool. So yeah, I Saw Her Standing There. It's a really great song. Paul McCartney's vocals. He's so young and new. It's just brilliant. I love the way he sings it. I love some of the younger vocals. They are amazing. Oh, just a quick fact I just remembered. Ringo Starr didn't play drums on Love Me Do. There was a session drummer who come in because they didn't think Ringo was that great at the time as well. Poor Ringo. Then we have Misery, which is a Lennon-McCartney song. Now, interestingly, Misery is not on the American first Beatles album, but the American albums get confusing for me, so I might not talk about them too much. And I Go to Him, which I quite like, which is a cover. Chains. Chains is not one of my favourite Beatles songs, but it is an early, from that time period, it's still quite a good song. We have Boys, Ringo's first singing, which is amazing. I love Ringo singing. Ask Me Why is great. And Please Please Me, the title track, is an amazing song. I really love the chorus. Love Me Do, who doesn't love that? P.S. I Love You is great. Do You Want to Know a Secret? A Taste of Honey. These Lennon-McCartney songs are classics in their own right. And they built the foundation to what would become the best band in the world. A Taste of Honey is lovely. There's a Place. There's a Place is a really underrated Beatles song, in my opinion. I think it's great. And then the best song on the album by a country mile is Twist and Shout, which they recorded last. So the story is that Lennon was, his voice was tired and he already had a cold that day, so he was sucking lemon sweets or throat sweets. And he just has this really raspy sound, which is amazing for the song Twist and Shout, which bookmark ends the album. I also love the older label. I think it's really cool. I'm not going to take it out. It has been used quite a bit. All my Beatles albums have been played quite a bit. But yeah, that's the Beatles, Please Please Me. It does sound better in mono, but mono can be hard to find. There was a 2009 mono box set that came out, but they weren't released individually, not to my knowledge, so it can be hard to find them, but stereo is alright. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we go over with the Beatles. Take care, everyone.